Okay, welcome everybody to another episode of Breaking Absolutes. Today is kind of a fun departure for me. I've sort of embarked upon this effort to talk to bands around the world from different countries, bands that I think are really exciting, doing some interesting things. I came across a band from India going by the name of Girish and the Chronicles. You probably heard Girish's dog there. He's probably getting rid of the dog. Really great new rock band, hard rock band, maybe heavy metal in places. A lot of little classic sound in their music, but also some very sort of fresh stuff. And so let me frame this up a little bit, and then we'll bring Girish on to talk to him. By the way, before we get rolling, if and when you see this, or if you're watching now, please subscribe, follow. That helps me sort of justify being able to bring on guests and do this more. I think it's important because, as I've said before, the idea here is to try and build more audience for this music and for these creators that are doing music that still requires them to learn their craft and to sort of dig deep on real performance technique and passion. And I think this music uniquely offers that. So that's my goal with all of this. So a little about Girish and the Chronicles. So they're based in Bengaluru since about 2013. In 2010, the band was awarded runner-up in the Music Awards Festival, Sunkain Skale. I'll get Girish to correct my pronunciation later. That's in Montenegro. The band took part in the Hornbill Festival and were runners-up there. In 2018, the band released a single, "Rock the Highway," which was featured on by Classic Rock magazine, and their track of the week. Excuse me. It was also featured in rock magazine's Sleaze Rocks. Their first album, "Back on Earth," had 14 tracks and was released by UMG. They released a second record with Lion's Pride Music, and they've just made the announcement recently that they've been picked up by Frontiers Music, which makes a lot of sense to me just because of the roster that Frontiers maintains. And by the way, that's not just, excuse me, in the legacy acts, but new acts that they're signing. A good friend of mine who actually sings on my record, her record is just in the process of launching from Frontiers, and is more of a new metal sound. So Frontiers is certainly doing a lot of things. So with all of that as a prelude to Girish, let's bring Girish on and start talking about him and his band. Hey, Girish, welcome.
Hey, what's up? Thank you so much for having me in your show.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us your dog's name.
This one is Yuki. So I named her after a Japanese anime character from
nice.
Naruto.
Yeah.
It means snow in Japanese because her dad is a husky.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, hey, before we get rolling on everything else, tell us just how you've been doing during the lockdown. How have you managed during this last year or so?
Yeah, last year, 2020 was kind of completely shut for all of us, and we had announced the release of the album in 2019, right? So thankfully we had already finished a lot of the stuff, and right when we submitted the album and then we kind of started announcing, the whole lockdown started, and the whole pandemic news came about, and we released it on 27th April, I think. So with Rock and Roll Is Here to Stay. And everything was going fine, except we couldn't tour or anything. We were just like enjoying, like we were getting a really good response from everyone. And we were really enjoying that. And we like, for me personally, Chris Adler had come to Bangalore for his clinics and stuff. And at that time, so he needed a little group to back him up in his live shows. So I was giving the vocals, and the rest of my band was also giving guitars, etc. And he really kind of asked me if we can collaborate. So said, yeah, we started something called Firstborn with a group he already had. He was looking for a vocalist. So it was kind of fun. I was doing all that during the lockdown. Basically, it was all about recording and stuff like that.
And I do want to talk more about that because that's it's really cool. But I'd like to, for folks who are not familiar with your music, let me kind of just give a broad stroke, and this will be for you too to understand how I experience the music. So it was one of the YouTube algorithms. You guys popped up, and it was Rock and Roll Is Here to Stay, which then led me down the rabbit hole of some of your other music that I want to also talk about. But here's the things people, I think, should know, at least from my perspective. You have a distinctive and amazing voice, by which I mean I'm also a vocalist, and so I listen both as a fan, but I also listen for other things when I'm hearing a vocalist. And with you, you have this control that's married to a range that's really unique, because you can get up into those notes, and you do it with a very powerful sort of classic rock styling. I mean, Coverdale with that sort of really um, passionate sort of gruffness in the voice and all of the facility in range. So that's the first thing that hit me. But then as I started to listen beyond the vocals, what I began to notice is that even though you guys sometimes are at a high level described as a classic rock band, I don't think that does justice to the guitar work. It's when you start to listen to what's going on with the guitar, it's far more interesting and unique than a lot of the music that generationally you sometimes get identified with. And then if you switch over and start listening to the bass, your bass player will come in. And I'm sorry, I don't know their names off the top of my head. Your bass player will come in and start doing some slapping in some places. And that killed me. It's been so long since I heard that in a rock tune. And it was always done artfully and appropriately for the song. And then your drummer just has this huge sound and really knows how to not overplay against the rest of the music. So I mean, the combination, and then you guys have this really uncanny way of marrying different styles into even a same tune. So I listened and it became a fan. It's the reason I reached out. So it leads me to my first question. And I know you've talked about this before, but because a lot of the folks who listen to me and follow me, I expect me to talk to vocalists about their vocal technique because everybody wants to be the singer. Tell me a little bit about how you kind of came by your ability.
I think it's nothing surprising to me because when I was growing up in school, especially, as a teenager, like I had a group of friends who we were all into heavy metal bands like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, even Manowar, and later on Megadeth, Pantera, and all those bands that we generally grew up listening to, right? So I just really wanted to kind of sing like that,
Yeah.
I think the greatest inspiration at that time was Bruce Dickinson, most probably, because I really wanted to have that heavy, powerful voice. And although I used to listen to bands like Bon Jovi, and it was one of those years Bon Jovi had released Crush, Aerosmith had released Just Push Play, and Iron Maiden had released Brave New World, right? It was, I think, the same year, like at around the same year. And like it kind of enhanced my whole thing more. It's like these bands are still doing it, like it was really a huge revelation for me. So I started I started teaching myself how to sing like that. Like I was very dedicated towards it, especially Bruce Dickinson, even Bon Jovi, Axl Rose. So there was a huge variety of voices I was trying out. So I guess slowly they all started forming a voice of my own, in a way. So yeah, but in a way, it's nothing surprising.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of people have gone down that path.
So you're self-taught, no formal training, right?
No, yeah, I'm self-taught actually.
Self-taught. But I read that you put in the hours. I mean, the a creative principle that I feel is transferable to any art is commitment to doing the work, whether it's
True.
playing an instrument or writing a book or painting. um, you do it again and again. You're practicing and you're improving. And I read how much time you would spend singing to kind of build this into your voice. And you can hear folks who are listening with us today. If you hit Girish's channel, um, he's also got covers that he'll do. And he does an Iron Maiden cover that's just amazing. He does a cover of Mile Matijevic doing "She's Gone," I think it is, from Stillheart.
Yeah, that was just crazy, man. Like, I was like,
Yeah,
okay, I'm gonna do this once, and like that's it, and then never after that.
yeah. He's a guy I hope to talk to someday, because he was one of those late 80s vocalists who did things that hadn't really been done. And a lot of singers were, in fact, his story a lot of the times is that he would go into bars and he would get bet $100 he can't hit the note, and of course he always
Wow.
did.
I mean,
Um,
I can imagine that he's just got an incredible range.
yeah, but so he's got his thing, but I'm really impressed with your voice again, because of
Thank
the
you so much.
range, the tone that you get. It's not easy, I don't think, to be able to hit those notes and to sustain those notes while sort of getting that growl in it. And I don't mean nothing, not that there's anything wrong with this, but I'm not talking about the sort of death growl that you get in metalcore. Nothing wrong with that. It's a very cool vocal style, but it's different than the approach you take, which is, I think, melody first.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah,
And then add a little bit of raspiness to it. And it's something I kind of developed. It's not like I had it naturally. I think I just wanted to so badly have that distortion in my voice when I used to listen to
yeah,
singers like Axl Rose, for example, right? And it kind of, I started doing it a lot, and over the years, I think it became a part of me. And now, like, it's just there, you know.
yeah,
So I think it can be developed too, I guess.
yeah. It did, and it's become your own. So as much as there may have been influences, you have your own
Yeah, yeah.
sound, 100%.
Thanks a lot.
Let's talk a little bit about the songwriting approach for the band, because you guys have this very distinctive sound that definitely harkens back to some of the music from the 80s and 90s, but pulls forward other elements of other subgenres of metal. And I wonder, are you guys very intentional about trying to capture some of that, or is it just kind of an organic reflection of your tastes?
I think it's the latter, yes. Because when I was in school, and the bassist is actually my own brother, so we learned music together. Like we had a band even when we were kids, and so we were more into the heavy metal side of things, which was more related to the new wave of British heavy metal, and then later on a little bit of thrash. But whereas my guitarist, he was more into stuff like Van Halen, for example. So he
Yeah,
was more of a like a like a Sunset Strip kind of a guy,
yeah,
and
yeah,
he was in a different region of the state of Sikkim. We are all from Sikkim, a state in India, and it was kind of later on in life, long story short, when we met, and we kind of started experimenting. And I think my being kind of totally reflected the more darker and the minor side of it, whereas guitarist Suraj, his style of guitaring was more related to that typical 80s, with tapping and whammy bar and everything.
yeah.
So we kind of basically, it's just a reflection of what we love. You're right in that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, tell me your guitarist name again.
Suraj.
Suraj. you can tell him for me, one of the things that impressed me as I was kind of going down through your catalog um, is that his guitar solos are and his verse chord progressions, his riffs are unpredictable to me. It's for me, it's always if I can sort of predict where it's going to go, I start to lose a little bit of interest.
Yeah, yeah,
And it
that
would be
happens.
very. Go ahead.
I mean, that happens to me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and I was just going to say, so uh, it would be very easy if the idea is, or even if it's coming from an authentic place, to um, you know build from a base of music that was popular, most popular in the 80s and 90s, to slip into sort of mimicry. But you guys don't do that. It feels to me whenever, and this is all of you, but when we were talking about your guitar player, it was always unique. I couldn't anticipate the changes, and that's so delightful as a listener when the music takes you places you don't know. So,
thanks.
um,
Well,
tell
yeah,
us.
it's
No, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, the whole thing. It's got to do with the fact that like all of us, like Suraj, me, Yogesh, the bassist, we all play a lot of guitars, and we are riffing all the time. And when we are creating songs, sometimes I might just come up with an entire song. I will make a demo and I'll send it to the guys, and sometimes the other guys do the same. But sometimes we just listen to a song, and suddenly I might just say, like, why don't we put this crazy part over here,
Yeah.
or if I have some sort of a riff, now Suraj or Yogesh will come up with an idea that, like, I just couldn't even think of. So I think that's the factor that's driving us. We like surprises. So we kind of surprise each other. So I think it reflects on people as well.
Yeah, it does for sure. And there are some of your songs that scratch an itch, like rock and roll is here to stay. I have some questions later I want to talk about that, but it kind of speaks to a feeling that a lot of people who enjoy the music, I think, feel. So you're tapping into, I think, an emotional energy or um, a shared, feeling about and love for the music, for sure. And
True, true.
that's infectious. That's why I wanted to have you on, and I want to encourage people to check you guys out. Um, I, I
Thank you.
I don't think if people listen to it, I think you're going to get fans.
Thanks a lot.
Tell us, just because a lot of the folks that follow this show are domestic, meaning in the United States. Tell us a little bit about the rock scene in India, just so that we can like have some exchange on what it's like for you.
The rock scene has been very turbulent in India. So it was there since the 60s, actually, like bands touring, doing this, that. But I think it became quite prominent in the 80s when there were a couple of bands, touring about the country, playing covers and stuff. But there was this particular band named Rock Machine. Okay, so, and MTV had also come to India, and they were like the first band who like recorded an album, and they kind of, and I had no idea, even I had no idea about the history of Indian rock, actually. Me being to like, I belong to Sikkim, which is again a very far away place from the rest of the country, and like it's like a small town thing. So, but later on, as we grew up, I got to know about, like, how bands evolved in India. And this whole melodic rock, the heavy metal scene was like running parallel to the rest of the world. But I guess it didn't really have a huge exposure or something because of the lack of media. And right now, I would say probably we are the only band who's doing the kind of music we do, like which has an 80s kind of a feeling to it, but also has a mix of, like you said, it's kind of unpredictable. You just don't know what's the next song.
Yeah.
So but there are a lot of like extreme metal bands. There are a lot of heavy metal thrash bands, and they're like, it's really, really, really underground, you know.
Yeah.
But like there are many videos and stuff on YouTube, and it's yeah, it's like that. It's a mixed bag, you know, because Bollywood is just so big over here,
Yeah.
and and the language barrier, of course, because the English listening, especially in rock, even right now, the pop scene, of course, rules everything as well, like in
Yeah. Yeah.
any era. So yeah, it's very mixed up.
So so when in the rock scene, then, is there an expectation sometimes that the music be in the native language? Is that
Yeah,
what
a
you're
lot
saying?
of it actually depends on a lot of times. Sometimes it also depends on region. India is like really diverse, right? So if you look at the northeastern side of India, so there is a lot of a huge portion of people would prefer rock to be in English. If you go towards northern India, towards the capital, there will be like a demand of songs to be more in Hindi, right?
Yeah.
So in South again, there it's a very mixed kind of a culture, but South India, especially Bangalore, or now it's called Bangalore, is home to a lot of like rock and metal bands, and the whole scene of international bands coming to India started with Bangalore, you know, Iron Maiden and all these bands, Deep Purple, they all started coming to Bangalore. I guess that's a huge part of why it is like that.
So then do you, with your songs, do you have versions of those in local language? Do you sort of write them twice, so to speak?
No, actually, we don't. We don't
Okay.
have any such thing because I don't know. I've never thought in those terms. You know, I don't know. We just do what we do. I guess
Yeah.
there's no logic. There's no strategy or anything like that.
Yeah. The only reason I asked that question is I interviewed a guitarist by the name of Rude Jolie, who plays for Within Temptation, and one of his early groups, they were unique in that they only did local language.
Okay.
So it just made me wonder if you, because like everything I've heard, of course, is in English. Tell me, I was reading about something that I don't know if it's still a part of what you're doing, but at one point you were affiliated with the Indian Council of Cultural Relations.
Yeah.
Did I
Well.
read that right?
Yeah, that's right. It's ICCR in short. Well, those guys actually just promote the cultural stuff, like the ethnic stuff, or like like you said, the local language kind of a thing. But we kind of just went for it. You know, it never really kind of helped us in any way. But once, yeah, they are supposed to kind of send artists abroad, you know, like once in 3 years, 2 years, like that. And so they said, if you guys want to do like a Thailand, Vietnam kind of thing, although I don't think the rock, I don't know how the rock culture is there really, but we just went there, enjoyed, performed, and came back anyway. So
Yeah. Yeah, good chance to get out and do some shows. That's cool.
yeah, yeah.
So I wanted to ask, I think you've talked about this, but I think it would be interesting for people to know. You had Rowan Robertson, former Dio and Bang Tango guitarist, guest on a tune. How did that happen?
Yeah, actually, this was also in 2019, and excuse me. Well, so he just wrote to me on Facebook. I was like so surprised. Like, I'm like, how is Robin? Is this a real guy? And you know, I also read one comment in one of her YouTube videos. One guy had commented that I referred you guys to Robin Robertson. So I think that was the guy who kind of introduced
Uh,
him to us, and he said like I really like the vocals. You know, let's keep in touch. And then, you know, like later on, I took the opportunity. You know, like, would you want to feature in one of our songs in the new album? It was, yeah, cool. Why not?
yeah,
So yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it
that's
was
a cool
more.
collaboration for sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Um, So here's something I've been itching to talk to you about. When I listened to your song "Identity Crisis," starts out really great, really strong anthemic tune, and then you get to this middle section that just becomes a very progressive metal section. And all of
True,
the
true.
people who listen to me know that that's probably my favorite subgenre inside the broader sort of metal umbrella. So I was, I sat forward like, what? Wow, this is awesome. Um, I wanted to ask, and that's my preface to. I was reading that you guys, between a couple of records, you had like a long period, and that you'd been doing a bunch of writing, and that you had as many as 8 tunes, instrumentally anyway, that were more progressive in nature. I wonder, are you guys, is that a side of you that you want to do a bespoke record in, or is it, and did you put those songs away, or will that just be a style that is also part of who you are and that will come out on records that you write?
Yes, I think it'll always be a part of our records, because we really we don't like limiting ourselves to just like doing one same thing. Like it's I think musically we have a lot of uh, and like a like a completely other side to ourselves, and we like experimenting in the sense we've always liked bands like Dream Theater, right? And especially our bassist Yogesh is like the biggest fan of progressive metal, from all of us, and we like experimenting with our sounds. So I don't think there's any harm in having a few songs which have a progressive element, and even a little bit of, I don't know what the right term for it is, but something that has a movie background score kind of a thing going on at times.
Yeah.
So we love all those stuff, and we like introducing such things in our music at times.
Yeah, you can, and those elements are there. Um, it can be, to me, it's when I listen, it's challenging. Not all bands do a great job of introducing progressive sections and getting into and out of them in an elegant
Mhm.
way. And so when I was listening to Identity Crisis, like one of my happiest moments was when you guys I think elegantly transitioned into and out of a section. And so it made it feel part of the song while still really showing, I think, a little bit different sensibility of you guys as songwriters. It's really cool. In fact, I sent that link to a bass player friend of mine last night. She plays
Okay.
in my group, and I just sent her the link to Identity Crisis. I said, you got to listen to this. And she said this, yes. In fact, I hope she's listening. I told her we were going to be talking this morning, but
Okay.
um, it's a good one for folks on the chat and who are going to see this. I mean, any song that I've heard, and I'm not sure if I've heard everything, is a good entryway. But Identity Crisis is a song that I think showcases a lot of different sides of the band. So I can recommend that one as a first listen if you've not heard Girish and the
we have
Chronicles
another
before.
we have another song from the album. It's like a power ballad from the 80s. It's called Wounded. While it starts as a power ballad kind of a thing, like a typical, like a heartbroken kind of song, but it also kind of progresses towards this like a classic heavy metal progressive thing that the earlier Judas Priest used to do.
Oh,
And
nice.
also, and then it has a little bit of gentish stuff there going on. So we've done such things in that song as well. If you guys want to dig it in, dig
Yeah,
it. So,
that one I haven't heard. So as soon as we're done, I'm gonna boot that up. Um, yeah, that's really cool. It was just another. I was already really enjoying the music, and then when I listened to that song, it just showed me that there's another dimension to the group. And that's, as a fan, it's always fun to get to experience that the musicians can take the music into new places. Um, so now I do want to talk a little bit more about the Chris Adler connection. So tell us, how did that come about that you essentially became the backstop, the backing group for his solo tour?
Yeah, so the whole thing was starting in Bangalore. So he was supposed to be here just for like a drum clinic, like all over. He had about 15 or 16 uh, gigs lined up where he would be talking about drums, playing on backing tracks and stuff, So it was more of a like a drum clinic where he talks about his techniques to upcoming drummers and all. But every clinic of his, like, it's like a concert. People flock in. People love him a lot.
Yeah.
The metal scene, like, although it's dispersed, but when there's something going on, everyone just comes, and like you see, like, wow, okay, there are a lot of metalheads in Bangalore or anywhere. And then, like, yeah, so he came up with an idea, it seems, with the agency he was in contact with. So their name is Gravity Talents. And so he suggested, why don't we like try finding some musicians back home in India where I can jam with these guys, And so he wanted to do a set of Megadeth and Lamb of God. Okay. So the first guy he asked, in the sense, for singing Megadeth songs was me, because I was gonna be the singer. I wouldn't have qualified for the Lamb of God songs, I guess. But so I said yes, of course, why not? And he asked me if there's any guitarists and bassists. I said, yeah, you can. I can tell my band, it'll be fun, And so we knew a lot of Megadeth songs, like, as kids, right? So we were kind of ready for it. And the other guys, like, there was one more guitarist and one more vocalist who was gonna do the Lamb of God stuff. It was a crazy, like, set of gigs.
Was it kind of a one-time thing, or is there any talk of actually trying to record something?
So we did 3 gigs that time. But yeah, no. So during that tour, so he kind of asked me if I was free to do some collaborations, like, as a singer. So I said, of course, I would love to. Actually, I was jumping around. It's like, oh, hell yeah, why not? And so he made me listen to a demo, and I was like, well, yeah, this is really cool. So he already had a small group of people with whom he was like, kind of, just messing around with some riffs and all. And he had already left the band, Lamb of God. And guitarist is Myron, and James Lomenzo is the bassist. So, like,
Wow.
from White Lion, like that. And I was like really excited for this, And they started sending me some demos, and I gave some, like, rough vocal takes and all. And we actually recorded an EP, some singles. It's out there, on YouTube.
And this is under the name Firstborn?
Yeah, it's called Firstborn. Although it was hard for a lot of people to accept it, I guess, because there's a lot of singing involved, a lot of melodies involved, especially, it's expected, right? I'm like, what is this 80s guy singing with Chris Adler? But a lot of people enjoyed it too.
Yeah, that's so funny. I mean, everybody's got their opinion about this kind of thing, but I'm not a fan of the sort of segmentation, style segmentation. Like vocal style somehow separates metal fans for some reason. I get taste, but I listen pretty broadly, not even just metal. And I don't know. I find, my personal take is, I find joy in the various art forms.
True. That's
so
how it should be.
Yeah, so festivals are great because you get to hear all kinds of different vocal approaches, guitar approaches, right? All right. So will there be more, or are you guys that kind of just on hiatus now? The first one.
We are already recording a couple of songs. I think we will be releasing one more EP or an album, like, by the end of the year, like much before maybe. But we have already begun, like, recording. So again, it's going to be a very different kind of a thing. It's more I can't explain it. It's a blend of heavy metal and a little bit of thrashy, groovy stuff, and which involves singing, of course, and so yeah.
Well, you know what? It'll be new because it'll be you putting a vocal styling on top of that. I look forward to more of that. Okay, so here's the question I've been dying to ask you and talk about. Well, actually, before I get to that, I just want to be sure that we talk about your new record label. So, you were originally with, I had this down.
Lion's Pride.
Well, weren't you with UMG before that?
Oh yeah, that was back in 2014. So we wanted to release an album, and they were taking some independent bands at the time. But
Okay.
this was the Indian, the Indian, what do we call that?
Their office,
UMG
office.
India, So yeah, so it wasn't really related to like a broad thing. It was more limited to the Indian.
And then Lion's Pride, who's in Denmark, which that can't be a coincidence because lead singer for White Lion is from Denmark.
Oh wow!
And they've got an album named Pride. I don't know. Maybe I'm drawing false correlations.
That's a really nice correlation.
Yeah.
Mike Tramp, you mean?
Yeah, Mike Tramp, who he took so much crap, as a vocalist, and because they came out in a time when there was, with a lot of the other, at the time they weren't using the term hair band. I don't remember that.
Okay.
I think that was an appellation that was applied later, almost in a pejorative sense, although the communities embraced it now. But he came out in that era, and of course they had amazing success. Vito Bratta's still one of my favorite rock guitar players.
True.
But he's still out there pounding the pavement, making music. So I have a lot of respect for Mike Tramp. So I don't know if it's I don't know if it's related to the record label. But that's in the past because now you're signed to Frontiers. So give us that story.
Oh well, Frontiers is something. It was around the same time we released our first album, 2014. So it was around that time I was like just going around exploring YouTube for similar bands and all, So, and then I came across Winger's new video. I mean, I knew the name Frontiers before, but it was like I didn't know they had a YouTube channel and a new set of albums releasing and stuff. So I found this new album by Winger. So it was like, I didn't know like Winger had a new album, right? And the name of the song was Midnight Love Machine, something like that. So I just know the guitar parts, everything. And then I discovered the channel. I started going through the other, bands and all. Like, I was like, wow, this would be so cool for GATC. This is like exactly what we would like want, as a label. Yeah. So we started writing to them. We wrote to them a couple of times, and then finally in 2018 or 19, they kind of responded, yeah, we like the stuff, it's good. Although I don't think it's happening like right now, maybe after you release the next album or something. So after we released Rock and Roll Is Here to Stay, we immediately got an email saying that like, we are really, really impressed with the video and song. Rock and Roll Is Here to Stay. I think we should start talking on signing up and stuff. So yeah, it was exciting.
You guys are, I think, a really interesting fit there because, and maybe we talked about this a little bit earlier, but they have a lot of the legacy 80s and 90s acts, which isn't a bad thing. I'm glad because those musicians are so talented. It's one of the sort of, I think, misconceptions about the genre sort of at large is that it, these are misfits, so they're sort of musical, ineptitude. I hear all kinds of things, which is nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
There's
the guitarists were like crazy, and even the singers, everyone was super talented, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, not that there aren't exceptions to that, but it's a demanding style of music, which
Yeah.
brings me back to Girish and the Chronicles, because if you take the time to kind of just listen individually to the players, you start to recognize this sort of level of craft that you're each exercising. And even inside the genre, there's not a lot of vocalists doing what you're doing, or that can do it. And I always fixate there first, because I am a vocalist. But there's when you uncover it, the group is really gifted. Now, I always try and say that that's not sufficient. You then have to take all of that and write a great song. And why I was wanting to have you on and try and draw some more attention to you is that the music goes from songs there you just kind of smiling because it's part of a joke that, or a feeling, an idea you share as a member of the community. Like rock and roll is here to stay. It's like this defiance that, this is our music. It's not going away. We love it. It's powerful. All of those things that we feel as members and lovers of the genre. But then you have songs like Identity Crisis that kind of have something a little bit more edgy to say, um, go someplace musically very different. I don't want to say serious in terms of somber, but it's a song that's like got a little bit more of an edge. And so your music has this ability from track to track to kind of evoke different emotions. And not all bands do that, either intentionally or organically. And so I'm hoping folks that hear this will go and check you guys out. I think you are criminally under recognized in the United States. So I'm trying to help. Okay,
I think
so
a lot of it. Yeah, sorry. Uh,
go ahead.
yeah, just wanted to add, like, it's also related to the fact that we kind of we we start going crazy when we start writing new songs. Like a lot of times, what happens is we just come up with, right? So okay, the song, bridge, solo, chorus, done. I think we don't like doing that too much. We like
Yeah.
focusing on small details like this part here, there. I mean, I'm sure that's how the bands in the back in the day used to work, like, right? I mean, today
Yeah.
everyone's just sending in riffs, sending parts, okay, done, the song's over. But I think those small details and parts really matter.
Yeah, well, I'll use one of your songs as another that we talked about as an example of that, because in Identity Crisis, there's a really cool verse chorus thing. Then you do this very progressive metal interlude that fits perfectly with the song. You come up out of it back to some of the stuff we're done. Then there's a section where you do these really impressive screams, where you're up holding these notes really powerful, and then you go up a little higher, which is always a delight. But then you guys go into a coda at the end, something that isn't a part of the rest of the song. And so
Yeah.
there's yet another moment where you're kind of surprised, and it's cool. Like the song's not repeating. Those I think that wins fans because it's not predictable. But that's definitely I call them reader cookies. Like when you do that to me, then I am, you've hit my reader cookie. But yeah, so let me get back to the question I want to ask. So, and I know that this has been discussed ad nauseum, but some years ago, uh, Gene Simmons made this declaration about rock is dead.
Oh
And
yeah.
Gene being Gene, it could very well be that. Well, it was certainly him doing publicity. He's a master at that, right? Controversy, and in order to start a dialogue and draw more attention to what they're doing. He's brilliant at it. But part of me also wonders if there wasn't something in his brain, and I don't know if he's ever stipulated to this, or if this is categorically untrue, that in saying that it would somehow light a fire under those who are still of the community and making the music to prove him wrong. Now, the argument is he doesn't need to be proven wrong because rock's not dead. But he went on to try and clarify his statement, I think, a little bit as, I'm talking about the ability of a new band to make it. Established bands, they're of course going to have an audience and blah, blah, blah. So you guys, to bring it back to Girish and the Chronicles, I know you've been around for a little while now. It's not like you just formed yesterday, but in terms of sort of cultural consciousness, you're a young new band. But you certainly defy that whole idea that rock is dead. I mean, and it's not just because you're around, like you lyrically and musically seem to be shaking your fist at that idea. Do I have that right?
Yeah, I guess so, because we just don't like doing anything else, So like, I don't see any point in like trying to beat around the bush.
Yeah, I mean, when why that popped to mind is the song I mentioned earlier. Just YouTube algorithm showed me "Rock and Roll Is Here to Stay," and it seemed in my head the dots I connected, and maybe this is just Peter, were that's an answer to Mr. Gene Simmons, false declaration, not going anywhere. Now, I think it's inarguable that the dominant music on the radio waves and, is pop or hip hop or some combination of these others now for sure. And I've actually got a couple of weird ideas, just because it's how my brain thinks of how we change that back to rock and metal. So stay tuned on that. Not that I think I can do it single-handedly, but I have some ideas.
But it's awesome,
but it's far from gone. And, I think this is evidenced by all the festivals that draw such crowds. That not every band does an arena tour, but there's a lot of bands that come through here that play these mid-sized theaters, and they just pack them. I went to a Camelot show not that long ago, I think shortly before the pandemic, and that place was just filled. And one of the best shows at a middle-sized theater I've ever seen in terms of lights and staging and performance. And so this question just rings in my head, and it just seems to me that bands like Girish and the Chronicles are proving this wrong.
Yeah, we get that a lot, because a lot of like comments and emails saying that thank you for keeping rock alive and all that. Like, the thing is, we really don't have any such agenda or something. We are more like, this is all we want to do. That's it. It's simple, and I don't know whether it's dead or alive. We don't care, right? I mean, we just want to do this. That's it. And I don't know, who knows, Mr. Gene Simmons' statement might have had an unconscious effect on us, which might have resulted in the song. You never know, because I specifically remember that statement. I think we all do. What is he talking about?
It was patently false, because even if it's not the dominant, and even if it's harder in some ways or different to break in, none of that's gone away. And I think your approach is correct. You're not trying to do it. You're not trying to change the world and become successful because of Gene's statement. You come by this because of your love for the music, and that shows through in the songs. 100%. So with our last few minutes, let's get some updates. So future plans. Tell us about what's next for Girish and the Chronicles.
We are already in the process of recording the next album. We're facing a lot of challenges because of the new lockdown again, the new variant, and it's been bad over here. But some of us are getting vaccinated, thankfully, and we're hoping to, we're hoping that this gets over soon and we can resume the album. But it should be, as far as I know, it should be next year. But I cannot say for sure. There's a date or something.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, pretty bad.
So would it be fair to say that you guys are kind of just in your individual homes doing some songwriting. Just
Yeah, just before this new lockdown, we kind of met for 1 or 2 months, and we made demos, like some 10, 11 songs. Yeah. And
okay.
like it was all based on riffs that we were already working on, like while we were writing the album Rock the Highway as well. A lot of, there were some riffs that we kind of left off, right? So we started like tapping on those again. We found
Yeah.
some really good ones, and then we made some new ones, like about 5 to 6 of them. So it's sounding great to us so far. And but yeah, the whole process of like doing the detailed work, and then later on mastering, mixing, and then it's the solos. Yeah, that's the part where it will take a lot of time. I'm just worried.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a long process anyway. And then to be frustrated by the lockdowns, which just make the logistics challenging. I did forget to ask you lyrically, you guys kind of treat some of the subject matters just really lighthearted and fun, and some of it a little edgier. Do you take responsibility for most of the lyrics, or is that a shared responsibility in the band?
It's mostly me, I guess. But yeah, sometimes we do, like especially those fun kind of songs we might do together most of the time.
Yeah.
It's because I generally, we kind of even if we are together making music, suppose I feel like recording a verse, I'll just lock myself in the room. I'll record a verse. I'm like, what do you think, guys? And then we kind of talk over it. Maybe we can do this, that.
Yeah.
But yeah, mostly it's me, and it's mostly a lot of personal experiences, or sometimes there are some really bad things happening that I might not be able to be vocal about in social media or wherever, because it's not always safe to talk about something. And it's better to channel it out on a song. You never know who's coming after you, right?
That's funny. And I 100% understand what you're saying. We kind of live in an interesting climate where an opinion on any ideological line can be really divisive,
True,
right?
true.
And potentially put some of your audience at arm's length. Um,
Well,
um,
more than the audience, the whole concept of true freedom of speech does not really exist everywhere, I would say.
yeah,
It's just like like even I feel like unsafe at times. It's like crazy to even be in that situation. So
yeah.
it's kind of like that. Yeah.
You're exactly right. Like, the freedom of speech is not a global human right. Um, and um, so channeling that, and finding poetic ways to you know say those things with passion.
Yeah.
Music's a great
Although
outlet.
although I'll clarify that, like, of course there's freedom of speech, but the thing is, there are some topics and stuff that you don't really want to say it aloud, because at an individual level, you just don't know who's gonna take offense, and it often leads to something really, really bad. If
Yeah.
if it's a huge celebrity or someone like a huge actor or someone, they might be safe doing all that, but I truly feel like it's not really that safe.
No, I know what you mean. I've written songs myself where I used the poetic license of the lyrics in the song to express feelings and opinions that I know aren't globally shared, and I found an artful way to do it. And then when I get to perform that song, it's very cathartic. Um, so I think I kind of understand what you're saying. In either case, we'll be watching your lyrics to see what's in your mind.
I was just lying.
That's what Girish meant. Get him. Oh man. Okay. Okay. Well, my last question before we sign off, I always like to ask my guests, and that is, outside music, and we really understand, I think, now how passionate you are about being a musician and the music you make. And outside music, do you have interests, whether creative or otherwise, that things you intend to do or hope to do when you have time, or that you do to wind down?
I personally really love like using the camera. I just hang out with my camera all the time, and I like taking pictures and some videos and stuff. And actually now it's helping us, uh, like the band as well. Now we can
Yeah,
just
yeah, that's right.
we like it's like a DIY kind of a thing most for us, like most of the time. It's like it's always like that.
Well, keep at it. The imagery is, in fact, my next guest. We're going to talk about imagery. I think to a large degree, I think it's a really important part of the whole culture. Um, all right, Girish, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And I will include links wherever this goes to your. You want it to your band website? Is that the best place to point people?
Yeah.
Or
Our YouTube channel. Our
YouTube
YouTube
channel?
channel is a
Maybe YouTube
very
channel.
good idea.
Okay. And we'll stay in touch, man. You take good care, keep safe, and we'll be watching for new videos that you say you guys are working on.
Yeah. Thanks a lot.
All right, stick on the line, and I'll play the outro, and then we'll close it up. Okay, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
You probably can't see me because my camera's on a different connection.
Okay.
But I just want to say thanks again. When I get this posted up, I will shoot you a link.
Yeah, sure.
Because what we just did was live, but I'll be putting it up on YouTube and podcasts and everything else.
Okay.
And I'll shoot you a link so you can see what. But I think it went really well, and I think I'm hoping that we can really share your guys' music with more people.
Thanks a lot, man. Thanks a lot. Well, my wife's going to say, like, why do you always talk in such a style,
Tell her, tell her that
she'll tell me, you're on stage shouting and screaming like it's the end of the world, and while you're giving interviews, you talk like,
I have the perfect response. You just tell her, because that's what the babes like.
Yeah, that sounds good.
She'll love that.
Yeah. You'll get a report. Heavy metal singer found dead in his apartment.
Oh man, well, let's stay in touch. I'm rooting for you guys to make it like really big. I'm a fan, so let's stay in touch, and I'll shoot you an email here probably later today or tomorrow with all the links.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
All right, sir. Take care.
Thanks a lot. Oh, if you want to connect with Myron or like some of the Firstborn guys or someone, like, you let me know, and maybe I can just ask them for something.
Yeah, I would love that. I will. I'll shoot you an email, and I'll include that when I send the link. That'd be great.
Cool. Thanks a lot.
All right. Take care, man.
Take care.
Bye-bye.